Tim Kerin here from Mortgage Choice in Kingsley. Today I want to talk, as I so often do, about what's going on in the Perth property market, but specifically at the moment I want to talk about different versions of the statistics that we've been hearing, conflicting viewpoints, and how I'm thinking about that and what conclusions I draw from it. So a lot of conversations I've been having lately have been around, are we at the bottom of the Perth property market? Are we at the bottom of the cycle? And some people say, well, we've just been hearing news that property prices are going downwards. And other people are saying, well, we reckon property prices are stabilised. And other people are saying, well, we reckon property prices are going up. So how do you sift through all this information and figure out what's really going on, I think is the key question. And I think the answer involves figuring out which things are true and distinguishing them from which things are just shiny and sound good. So I'll give you an example. There was a REWA report recently with weekly sales stats from suburbs around Perth and listing them in order of most property sales. And so if you looked at Ellenbrook, for example, I think it was 6 sales that made it the 5th highest selling suburb that week. And if your response to that is, oh great, the Perth property market's turning around, everything's going well, Ellenbrook in particular is doing fantastic, that's not actually what the figures say. The figures say 6 houses sold in Ellenbrook last week, which means more sales are going on in Ellenbrook than most other suburbs of Perth. That doesn't necessarily translate to property prices are going down or property prices are going up. It translates to, for some reason, more properties are turning over. And from what I've anecdotally observed in Ellenbrook, that could easily be people who are finally deciding, right, that's it, I'm going to accept the reality that my price has dropped in the past, isn't continuing to drop necessarily, but has dropped, and I'm going to let my property go, I'm going to cut my losses. And that decision, for whatever demographic reason, seemed to happen in that very short 1-week window of time, more in Ellenbrook than most other suburbs in Perth. So that's about the only conclusion you can draw from that. Everything else is speculation. The other probably prominent example would be the difference between local news and national news. So if you look at Australia as a whole, which is a country that's almost the same size as the United States of America, with something like a 15th of the population, we're really spread out and we have really different local economies. So for example, Perth compared to Sydney 5 or 6 years ago, the median house price, believe it or not, was about the same. Since then, Perth property prices have gone down while Sydney has gone up dramatically. So if you paid attention to Sydney news, you would think everything is going wonderfully well for the last 5 years. If you paid attention to Perth news, you would think things are coming off the boil and not doing so well for about the last 5 years. So it depends which source you look at. And a lot of the sources that are out there that we do see are actually an average of everything. And so if turnover of property in Perth is something in the ballpark of 10% of what's going on nationally, then you wouldn't expect it to have much of an influence on the national figures. So things can be going quite badly in Perth, but still quite well in the rest of the country. And the national stats would show you that things are going quite well, which would completely conflict with our experience here in Perth. Likewise, things could be coming off the boil in Sydney and Melbourne, as they seem to be at the moment, and things could still be going quite well in Perth. And it would look nationally like things aren't going so well. So it's really important to distinguish what you're hearing in terms of national figures from what's actually going on in your local Perth economy, if you're in Perth, or your local Melbourne economy, or your local Darwin economy, wherever you actually are. The final point I think that stands out is if in Perth we are at the bottom of the property market, that is the perfect storm for expecting conflicting news. If you're ahead of the game, if we are at the bottom of the cycle, if we genuinely are at a point where property prices have gone like that and are about to go like that, then if you're a little bit behind the times, you would think prices are going down. If you're futuristic, you would think prices are going up. And if you are looking at exactly what's going on right now, you would think not much is happening in terms of prices. So given that there's people in all three of those camps, you would expect conflicting information. So to me, conflicting information is actually a sign that change is going on and different people have different perspectives on that. So those would be the 3 important things to think through. I believe, based on what's going on at the moment, based on the conversations I'm hearing, that we are at the bottom of the cycle. What's less clear to me is how long we're going to be at the bottom, how long it's going to take until we get the confidence to start offering more for properties, which in the end is the thing that will drive prices up again. But certainly over the last 6 months or so, I've seen plenty of evidence that prices have not been really dropping any further. They've just been as bad as they were 6 months ago, which, according to a lot of more forward-thinking people I'm speaking to, is actually the prime opportunity to buy. So I hope that helps think through whatever situation you're in. If you own a house, or if you're thinking of buying a house, or if you're thinking of selling a house, I hope that puts it in perspective. All the best.